speaking of actors, Benedict Cumberbatch, who we sort of talked about before, he was sort of coming out doing the press tour and talking about how, men are bad or whatever. He goes, there's so much toxic masculinity still in the world, right? Yeah. But, and that's, we even mentioned that before, that's what you have to do now for the press tour. Like, if you want to get press, you sort of have to go out there and, say something that sort of aligns with their thing, right? Of that stuff. But it's also more funny to me, just while you pair those things together with the way he talks about his character, just to remind you of how much of douchebags actors are. This is what he said. As he releases The Electrical Life with Louis Wayne and The Power of the Dog, the actor opens up about taking on the patriarchy, the stress he felt while playing his latest tortured genius, and the joys of nature. And he says that Louis Wayne is a film that shows once again why the 45-year-old is so good at bringing esoteric characters to life. And this is what he says. He goes, I really miss him. He reflects. He was by and large a joy to play. And there were moments of extreme distress and loneliness and isolation, which threw me into an understanding of what he must have endured, similar to when I played touring. And then he said, the guy was castrated in the film, right? And he said,
yeah, Alan Turing. No, both of them are castrated?
The guy that he's playing was castrated.
In this newest film?
In the last one.
Right, Alan Turing.
He goes, It feels like if he was alive and now, he'd be thriving. So hopefully we'd be in a more tolerant, supportive time where the way people are now. And his bravery was something that I learned from, and I wanted to do justice for him. So this is like in the midst of him being like, because if you're kind of like, this seems like bullshit he's saying. He's also like, I learned a lot from this brave character that I played, and just the way that I miss him. It's like,
he's talking about Alan Turing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, first off, you don't need to play this guy to be like, yeah, the guy got fucked over. And like, if he was alive today, he'd basically be like Elon Musk. And back then he was like chemically castrated for being gay.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. For sure. But like, I don't have to play him to like take that away. Like, you could just read about him.
But I just love the way that actors talk about fucking their craft.
Well, because if you're not all into your bullshit like that, then like, you're just like, yeah, it's like I pretend to be a guy for an obscene amount of money. Right. It's pretty easy.
But you have to be into this.
It comes pretty naturally to me. I'm good at memorizing lines, and then I go home and.
So they're good at this bullshit. And then it's just like, does that bullshit, like, the fucking saying nothing while saying everything, being like, he was a joy. There was moments of distress, loneliness, isolation, and I learned from him, and he would be thriving now. It's like, is that not the same as saying that, this toxic masculinity that appeals us all, we all need to do our part? Like, it's all the same, gobbledygook that they're professionals at saying, right?
Of course.
That's like me being like...
Well, I mean, the worst thing he could do is give some sort of fucking spicy take. And then it's like, the whole news is going to be like, Benedict Cumberbatch said this. And
this week.
Scandal.
I played Jeff Bezos in my sketch on the internet. Honestly, I was just able to tap into the intricacies that made him tick.
Man, it's like I feel like I've been to space.
Yeah, I feel like I've been there. I already miss Bezos. I spent so much time alone with just me and him that I feel like we had this connection. At times I loathed him. At times I empathized with him. And then when I played Feminist Mom... I realized this is a hurt lady. This is a lady that's hurting inside. And I wanted to do her justice when I put that on the screen.
I mean, it's like, dude, did you ever watch Inside the Actor's Studio? It's literally two people just jerking themselves off for a half an hour.
When I played Feminist Mom, she was able to give me what some might call an $80,000 education of what women have been through.
Yeah. It's like fucking James Lipton being like, so Tim, tell me what it was like to play the Tool Man.
Oh? Well, anyways, my moral of that point was it's all the same sort of bullshit.
Yeah.
And they're like master sophistrists,
Oh, for sure. I mean, again, you think of it from an incentive standpoint. There's zero incentive for them to say anything.
He's got the act,
especially for actors. Like, if you're famous enough, you're like, you don't even need to be on social media. Like, that's kind of the fucking dream for a lot of them. Is you go, I'm so famous that like, unless I want to be like The Rock and being like this brand guy, or Kevin Hart, where I'm like building a brand constantly.
Yeah, they like building brands.
But if you're not that shit, then you're like, yeah, I get fucking my movies and you don't hear from me. Like, Sean Penn's not fucking... I could.
He's doing all sorts of wacky things.
He doesn't have like an Instagram account, does he?
He's too busy taking down fucking El Chapo.
Yeah, exactly.